All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for our presentation, Norovirus Toolkit for Camp Outbreaks. This presentation is intended for both local health departments and organized camp directors and operators, and is aimed to prepare both for the upcoming camp season for dealing with norovirus or other similar viral gastrointestinal illnesses. Today we have three speakers: Sheila Chavez with Riverside County, who will be discussing best practices for camp outbreak readiness; Jennifer Forrester with Orange County, who will be covering the toolkit and control measures during an outbreak; and I'm Sarah Crossman with Riverside County, and I'm going to be discussing the background behind inspections and providing an overview of norovirus. All three of us are part of the California Conference of Directors of Environmental Health Technical Advisory Group on organized camps and have been regulating camps in our respective health departments for years. Since we are going to be doing this virtually today, and there are quite a few links on the slides, after the presentation is done, we are going to make it available on CCDH's website under events. We also want to make sure that everybody is able to get the most out of this training and still have the opportunity to interact with us. So everyone will be muted, and we are asking to please hold your questions to the end, and you'll be able to type your questions in the chat and we'll answer as many as we can. Also, during the presentation, you do have the ability to react. And if we ask you a question, we want you to be able to give us a thumbs up, raise your hand, clap, and react to some of the questions that we're asking. All right, before we get started, let's go ahead and test this out. If you could locate on your screen the react button, for me, it's usually at the bottom of the screen, and give us a thumbs up, a clap, something to let us know that you found that. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Local health departments, show of hands, who here has investigated a norovirus outbreak, whether it be at a camp, a dormitory, cruise ship, any type of norovirus investigation? Right. All right. Few of us. All right. Good. All right. Let's ask the organized camp people. Any of our organized camp operators, quick show of hands, who has responded in some capacity to an incident of norovirus or gastrointestinal illness at a camp? Few of us. All right. So this is going to be helpful training to quite a few of you. And for those of you who have not investigated a norovirus outbreak or have had to respond to a norovirus outbreak, and I hope you never have to, but if you do, this training should help you prepare and provide you guidance in how to respond. All right, today we're going to briefly be discussing organized camps and the relationship between local health departments and camps, discussing what norovirus is and why we want to prevent outbreaks, best practices for outbreak readiness, and then we will discuss the toolkit and various resources, and then discuss what to do if there is a norovirus outbreak. All right, let's get started and start discussing camps. Both local health departments and organized camp operators have the same goal. We want campers to be able to go have an outdoor living experience, whether it's educational, recreational, spiritual, or all of these and more, and we want it to be fun and safe. To facilitate that experience for campers, everyone needs to be healthy and safe. So local health departments conduct inspections, which I'll talk about in a minute, but the California Department of Public Health, CDPH, developed 3 steps to improve the health of campers and staff for these camps. These 3 steps are: step 1, control the spread of infectious and communicable diseases by promoting hand washing and good hygiene. Step 2, Identify safety hazards to prevent injuries and reduce the number of slips, trips, and falls. Of course, we want campers and staff to wear the appropriate protective gear and equipment for activities. And one way to prevent slips, trips, and falls is by requiring all campers and staff to wear closed-toed shoes. Step 3, improve the overall health of campers and staff by tracking injuries and illnesses to determine when, where, and how camper and staff health is being impacted. It is important that a camp identify and make changes in appropriate areas to keep campers and staff safe. And we're going to talk more about this throughout today, but let's talk a little about your local health department and their role. When your local environmental health department conducts camp inspections, they're looking at far more than just these 3 steps identified by CDPH. Their role is to evaluate the camp as a whole and ensure compliance with the many laws and regulations that there are to keep campers safe and staff safe too. Local health jurisdictions perform an annual site inspection to make sure camps are meeting requirements, not only for health screening and disease prevention, but also for overall camp operations. This includes reviewing emergency plans, living quarters, food service operations, pool facilities, and the various activities offered at each camp, confirming that each area meets the established health and safety standards. These inspections exist to help ensure everyone's safety. Your local health department is a valuable resource, and I encourage you to reach out whenever you have questions. We are here to support you. Now let's shift gears a little bit and talk about norovirus and why we want to prevent it from entering and spreading throughout camps. According to the California Department of Public Health and the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, an estimated 19 to 21 million people get sick from norovirus each year. Most infections come from direct contact with someone who is ill or from eating contaminated food. Norovirus is the leading cause of vomiting, diarrhea, and foodborne illness in the United States. In fact, studies have shown that infected food workers are responsible for about 70% of reported norovirus outbreaks linked to contaminated food. Now, before we go any further, a quick show of hands. Has anyone here ever experienced norovirus or any type of foodborne illness? It's definitely not pleasant. Norovirus in particular is a tough little bug. It likes to last and be around. Yep, few of us. Yep. So let's take a look at the symptoms of norovirus. Symptoms of norovirus typically begin 12 to 48 hours after exposure and usually last between 1 and 3 days. The most common symptoms include vomiting, diarrhea, nausea, and stomach cramps. There's no specific treatment for norovirus because it's caused by a virus, not a bacteria. Antibiotics don't work against it. The most important thing is to stay hydrated, as vomiting and diarrhea can quickly lead to dehydration. A single episode of vomiting or diarrhea can release millions of viral particles. People can continue to shed the virus in their stool for up to 14 days after the symptoms have resolved themselves. And norovirus is extremely contagious. The infectious dose is very low. It's just about 10 viral particles, and that's enough to make someone sick. So now let's talk about where one may encounter this nasty little bug. The most commonly reported setting for norovirus outbreaks in the US and other industrialized countries is healthcare facilities, including long-term care facilities and hospitals. In fact, more than half of all norovirus outbreaks reported in the US occur in long-term care facilities. Norovirus is also the leading cause of outbreaks linked to contaminated food in the US. About 50% of all foodborne illness outbreaks are caused by norovirus. Most of these occur in food service settings, such as restaurants. In many cases, infected food workers are the source, often by handling ready-to-eat foods with bare hands or by contaminating surfaces and food contact equipment. Schools and childcare centers, colleges, and other universities also frequently experience norovirus outbreaks. On some campuses, outbreaks have been widespread enough to force temporary closures. Close living quarters, shared living spaces, and high-touch surfaces make it easy for the virus to spread in these types of environments. Although norovirus outbreaks on cruise ships receive a lot of public attention, they actually represent only about 1% of all the reported outbreaks. That said, norovirus is responsible for over 90% of diarrheal disease outbreaks that occur on cruise ships. So, thinking about the characteristics of these settings and what these different settings share, let's think about other places where large groups of people gather or share common areas or meals, like camps, which is why we're discussing this today. Now that we've talked about where norovirus outbreaks commonly occur, let's focus on one of the biggest drivers of transmission, contaminated food. Understanding how norovirus gets into food and how easily it can spread from there is essential for preventing outbreaks in camps. So as we discussed, norovirus is extremely contagious. It can be present in vomit or feces even before a person starts to feel sick and even after their symptoms have subsided. So food can easily become contaminated in several ways. A person who is infected may handle food with bare hands, or food may be placed on a counter or surface that contains tiny particles of vomit or feces. Even microscopic droplets released during a vomiting incident can travel through the air and land on food or nearby surfaces. Norovirus can also contaminate food before it even reaches a kitchen. Foods grown or harvested in contaminated water, such as oysters, or produce that is watered in the field with contaminated irrigation water, can carry the virus as well. So with all these ways norovirus can spread, the big question becomes, what can we do about it? Let's take a look at the prevention steps that can be put in place to reduce the risk and help keep everyone safe. Preventing norovirus in facilities. So preventing norovirus starts with strong hygiene practices and clear policies that help stop the virus from spreading. First, proper hand washing is essential. Hands must be washed thoroughly with soap and water. Hand sanitizer alone is not effective against norovirus. Good personal hygiene is the foundation of prevention, and it starts with good hand washing practices. Anyone who is sick with norovirus symptoms should stay home and avoid preparing or handling food or even caring for others. Food handlers are one of the main sources of contamination, and if they are showing symptoms, it's important that they don't return to work for at least 48 hours after their symptoms have fully resolved, because they can still be shedding the virus, even if they don't currently have symptoms. In certain settings with sensitive populations, employee screening is recommended to help identify illness early. If a sick food handler is identified, any ready-to-eat food that person has worked on should be discarded to prevent potential contamination. Finally, facilities should implement proper cleaning and disinfection protocols that are effective against norovirus, especially on high-touch surfaces and in areas where illness has occurred. Even with strong prevention practices in place, norovirus can still find its way from the outside in, especially through contaminated water. So now let's shift a little bit and talk about how norovirus can get into recreational and drinking water and why this matters for our camp environments. Both recreational water and drinking water can be contaminated with norovirus, and contamination can happen in several ways. First, norovirus can enter drinking water at the source. For example, a leaking or malfunctioning septic system can contaminate a nearby well or flow into rivers, lakes, or streams that people use for recreation. Recreational water can also be contaminated when a person who has norovirus vomits or has a diarrheal incident in the water. Even a very small amount can introduce millions of viral particles, and as we discussed earlier, it doesn't take much for it to spread. Finally, water that is not treated properly can allow norovirus to survive. Pools that don't maintain adequate chlorine levels are especially at risk because chlorine plays a huge role in inactivating the virus. With these contamination risks in mind, it's important for facilities to know when and how to respond. Let's go over the key prevention steps for recreational water, including temporary closures during sewage events or after any vomit or diarrheal incident. When recreational water becomes contaminated, immediate steps are needed to protect public health. If there's a sewage spill affecting a lake, river, or other recreational water, the area should be closed right away. This includes posting a clear sign and collecting water samples to ensure harmful levels of bacteria and viruses are no longer present before reopening. Pools and spas also require action when contamination occurs. If someone vomits or has a diarrheal incident in the water, the pool or spa must be closed. Proper hyperchlorination should be performed using the correct chlorine and chlorine concentration and contact time. It's that correct concentration and contact time that inactivates norovirus. In addition, facilities should backwash sand filters or replace cartridge filters to remove any remaining contamination. These steps help ensure that recreational water is safe before swimmers come back and start using them again. We've talked about how to respond when contamination happens in food and water, but what about preparing for an outbreak overall? I'm going to turn things over now to Sheila, and she is going to transition us and discuss some of the best practices that can help camps stay ready and respond quickly to norovirus should it happen to appear.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Sarah, again. Now I'm going to go over the best practices for camp outbreak readiness, specifically focused on norovirus prevention. Camp environments present unique challenges because of shared dining, sleeping quarters, bathrooms, and group activities, which can all increase the risk of person-to-person spread. And because of that, outbreak readiness is really about being proactive rather than reactive, and having strong policies, trained staff, and clear response procedures in place before an illness event ever occurs helps reduce the likelihood and impact of an outbreak. A self-inspection checklist is a helpful tool for camps to get ready for the season. And on the slide here, there is an example of a self-inspection checklist. I think this is from Orange County, but do check with your local health department to see if they do have a self-inspection checklist that you could also use for your camp. This checklist helps identify any gaps in staffing, healthcare planning, medical screening, or emergency procedures before camp begins. For example, all organized camps are required to have a designated health supervisor, and this can be a physician, a registered nurse, a licensed vocational nurse, or someone with specific training and certifications in pediatric first aid and pediatric CPR. And all counselors are also required to maintain valid CPR and first aid certifications to ensure that they can respond appropriately in an emergency. Camps must also have a written healthcare plan in place. And this plan outlines staff's responsibilities, healthcare and sanitation procedures, record-keeping systems, supply maintenance, coordination with local medical providers, and disease prevention and control strategies, including how illnesses are managed. In addition, camps are required to maintain a medical logbook. And this records every illness or injury, including who was treated, what care or medication was given, who provided that treatment, and when parents or guardians were notified. And health documentation is also essential. And this includes health histories for both staff and campers, and immunization records such as the last tetanus shot, and any other allergies or medical conditions that may require special consideration. And like Sarah mentioned, a health screening must be completed within 24 hours of arrival of campers by health staff. And this helps identify any illness, injury, or communicable disease early on, and confirms that the information is provided in the health history as well. Written emergency procedures are also required, and this gives staff clear guidance for responding to situations like injuries, natural disasters like fire and earthquake, and communicable diseases outbreaks such as norovirus, ensuring a coordinated response. As far as emergency plans, it is very effective for norovirus prevention to have a strong emergency response component. While prevention is the priority, camps also need to be prepared to respond quickly and effectively when incidents occur. First, camps should have written procedures for transportation emergencies and evacuation orders. And this includes clear evacuation routes, transportation plans, camper and staff accountability procedures, and communication protocols with parents and emergency responders. For illness and outbreaks, especially norovirus, camps should have a clear response plan that explains how sick individuals will be identified, isolated, and cared for. Staff also need to know when to exclude ill campers or employees and how to report suspected outbreaks to public health, and what enhanced cleaning and disinfection steps must be implemented to stop further spread. Emergency training is also essential. Staff should be routinely trained on illness reporting, outbreak response procedures, PPE use, cleaning and disinfection, and emergency communication. Regular drills or tabletop exercises are helpful to help reinforce these expectations before an actual event happens. And camp should also maintain an up-to-date evacuation map that is easily accessible. This should be posted in several areas of the camp, and it should clearly show the evacuation routes, any assembly areas where there are medical aid locations, and any alternate shelter sites. Communication is another critical piece. Camps need clear procedures for both internal communication with staff and campers, and external communication with parents, public health, and emergency responders, and other regulatory agencies. Having these designated contacts and pre-written messaging helps ensure information is accurate and timely, especially during an event. Ultimately, the goal is to have a response plan that is documented, practiced, and well coordinated so that camps can protect campers and staff and minimize the impact of any emergency or outbreak. One of the most important parts of any emergency or outbreak, as far as the response plan, is clearly defining who is responsible and for what. During an emergency, unclear roles can slow down response and increase risk for both campers and staff. And this slide shows an example of how camps can assign specific responsibilities ahead of time. Each camp should identify both a primary and a secondary person for key roles. The secondary serves as a backup in case the primary individual is not available. And common assignments include the health supervisor, who typically leads illness investigations and medical response, the camp director, who is responsible for operational decisions and communication, and designated backup staff to ensure continuity if someone is unavailable. And these response plans should clearly outline the responsibilities, such as identifying and reporting illness or outbreaks, isolating sick campers and staff, communicating with parents and leadership, and also notifying the local health department when required. And who is going to coordinate cleaning and disinfection, maintaining the medical logs, and managing evacuation or shelter procedures when needed. For norovirus specifically, staff should clearly know who initiates outbreak response procedures, who makes exclusion and return to camp decisions, and who serves as the main contact with public health. Overall, clearly assigning these roles before an emergency happens helps ensure a faster, more organized response and reduces confusion while protecting health and safety of campers and staff. Norovirus prevention actually begins before the first camper ever arrives. Preparation and communication are some of the most effective tools camps can have to prevent outbreaks from starting in the first place. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has established some guidance to help ensure campers arrive healthy and free of symptoms. A key step is promoting healthy camping early. Before camp starts, information should be shared with staff, parents, and campers about norovirus symptoms, how it spreads, and how can it be prevented. And this helps set expectations and builds awareness across everyone involved. Camp should also consider a pre-camp health agreement. This typically requires campers to be free from vomiting, diarrhea, and any other norovirus symptoms for at least 48 hours prior to arrival. And this is important because individuals can still shed the virus even after the symptoms improve. Parent communication is also critical. Parents need to understand that sick campers should not be dropped off, and that if a camper becomes ill during camp, they may need to be picked up early to prevent further spread. Staff training is another key piece. All staff should be trained on proper hand washing with soap and water, as this is the most effective way to prevent norovirus. Again, hand sanitizer can be used as a supplement, but it does not replace proper hand washing. Finally, camp should verify that all hand washing stations are fully stocked and working before camp begins. And this includes running water, soap, and disposable paper towels to make sure that good hygiene practices are easy to follow. Overall, these steps taken before camp starts significantly reduces the risk of introducing norovirus and helps set the foundation for a healthy camp season. There is also a reference link on the slide to CDC's Preventing Norovirus at Youth Camps available on here, which will also be posted after the presentation so that you can easily click that. During camp, the focus is on preventing norovirus through strong hygiene practices and keeping illness out of food areas. You want to make sure that campers are actively taught on proper hand washing with soap, running water, and paper towels, and that those supplies are always made available and functioning. And staff and food workers must consistently follow safe food handling practices, especially proper hand washing and correct glove use when handling ready-to-eat foods. Only potable treated water should be used for cooking and for food preparation. Never use untreated or unverified water sources. And most importantly, anyone who is vomiting or has diarrhea must be kept out of kitchens and away from any food preparation, or food contact surfaces to prevent transmission. During camp, the priority is quickly separating anyone who is ill to prevent norovirus from spreading. So if there are any ill campers and staff, then they should be isolated in the camp infirmary or a designated holding area, and when possible, placed in separate housing or cabins. And they should also use separate restrooms and dining areas. And these restrictions should remain in place until at least 48 hours after symptoms have completely resolved. Anyone who is vomiting or has diarrhea should not participate in any swimming or other recreational water activities and should be excluded from those activities until at least 1 week after symptoms resolve. And parents should also be notified promptly, since ill campers may need to be picked up early from camp. After a vomiting or diarrhea incident, the first step is to immediately restrict access and isolate the affected area to prevent further contamination. Staff should always use PPE, including disposable gloves and a face mask, before entering the area to reduce exposure risk. Next, the area should be thoroughly cleaned using paper towels, soap, and hot water to physically remove any contamination. After cleaning, the area must be disinfected using an approved disinfectant or bleach solution, following the product label directions. The surface should remain wet for at least 5 minutes to ensure proper disinfection. And if a commercial disinfectant is not made available, then a bleach solution can be made using 5 tablespoons to 1.5 cups of household bleach per gallon of water, achieving 1,000 to 5,000 ppm concentration. Once disinfection is complete, the area should be cleaned again with soap and water. And finally, that PPE should be carefully removed and discarded, and waste should be properly disposed of, and hands must be thoroughly washed with soap and water. Camp settings, again, like I mentioned, create a higher risk for norovirus because of shared dining, housing, bathrooms, and group activities. So strong outbreak readiness is essential. The California Department of Public Health Infectious Diseases Branch also developed a norovirus toolkit for camp outbreaks for local health departments and organized camps, which includes a best practices checklist for camp preparedness. And you can use this checklist to help camps further evaluate their plans. And it should be reviewed annually to identify any gaps and make the appropriate updates as needed. First, we want to start with reviewing and updating camp policies and procedures. This includes making sure parents understand illness expectations before camp begins, including send home policies, and ensuring sick campers do not attend. It also includes early identification through health check screening at check-in and clear communication about illness risks, including possible early pickup or possible refunds for those campers. Camps should report outbreaks to the local health department right away. And they should also ensure that bedding materials and other are easily cleanable and covered with impermeable materials, and consider arranging, well, it is a requirement, arranging sleeping areas in a head to foot layout to reduce that person-to-person spread. Next is a strong ill employee policy. Staff and volunteers must report symptoms immediately, especially vomiting and diarrhea, and must be excluded from work until at least 48 hours after those symptoms resolve. We also want to monitor illness in campers and staff daily. Because campers may not always report symptoms right away, active monitoring and illness logs help identify trends early on and detect outbreaks sooner. An outbreak management action plan is also critical. Staff roles should be clearly identified, like we discussed, in advance for communication, medical care, cleaning and disinfection, and illness tracking. And that plan should also include the isolation procedures and separate housing and restroom access for ill individuals. Staff training is also another key piece. All staff should be trained on outbreak procedures, hand washing, PPE use, and cleaning and disinfection, and should have access to a camp manual for quick reference. We also want to ensure supplies are fully stocked and accessible throughout the camp, and that includes gloves, masks, gowns, soap, bleach, and other cleaning materials, so a response is immediate and not delayed. Communication planning is also essential. Camps should maintain updated contact lists and be prepared with templates, which Jennifer will discuss later on, to quickly identify and communicate with parents, staff, and public health partners during an outbreak. We also want to identify external resources ahead of time, such as the local health department, any portable toilet and hand washing vendors that could be used, and any environmental cleaning support services as well. Personal hygiene is and should be reinforced throughout the camp. Hand washing, again, is required, making sure that campers hand wash properly before eating and after restroom use, after coughing or handling any potentially contaminated items. And ensuring that hand washing stations, again, must be fully stocked and functional. And camps should also discourage campers from sharing personal items such as water bottles, towels, toothbrushes, and other personal hygiene items. Finally, drinking and recreational water must be properly tested and treated, and untreated or unverified water should never be used, and ill individuals must be excluded from swimming and recreational activities for at least 1 week after symptoms resolve. And on this slide, we also have that link to CDPH's Norovirus Toolkit for camp outbreaks.
I'm going to go ahead and take a deeper dive into the toolkit now. And this compilation of norovirus toolkits and resources is actually a compilation from CDC, CDPH, Association of Food and Drug Officials, also known as AFDO, and local health jurisdictions. California Department of Public Health Infectious Diseases Branch has placed together a norovirus toolkit for camp outbreaks. This toolkit assists local health department staff who investigate norovirus outbreaks in camp settings. And we're going to go ahead and go over the components of this overarching toolkit. So the notification to local health departments is essential, and sooner the better. We want to make sure we're here to assist camps in spreading, from spreading, an outbreak spreading. And also we want to be able to ensure that the assigned roles and responsibilities for the camp are in place. We want to be able to track ill persons, educate staff, campers, and parents, implement camp-wide control measures, and consult with a local health department should there be any laboratory testing that would take place, in coordinating that testing alongside with working with the local health department to determine when the outbreak is over. This slide captures the toolkit's checklist for responding to a norovirus outbreak. We will now review each section in the checklist. The camp will need to maintain the local health department contact. So did you know that the California Conference of Local Health Officers directory is provided on the California Department of Public Health website. Each of the cities and/or county local health departments include the name of the health officer and local health department contact information. You should also have this information readily available in your emergency plan that is often reviewed in preparation of camp starting their season by the local health jurisdiction issuing the health permit. When an outbreak is detected or suspected, the first step should be to notify the local health department, as mentioned previously. We're now going to identify what is an outbreak. By definition, 2 or more persons with suspected or confirmed norovirus with symptoms meeting case definition of 1, persons with vomiting or diarrhea. This could be diarrhea as 3 or more loose stool episodes within a 24-hour period. Can also be accompanied by abdominal cramping. Or 2, confirmed norovirus outbreak can also be identified through persons detected with laboratory specimens. Although it is noteworthy that sometimes coordinating testing with lab results does take longer. So signs and symptoms is often used as a preliminary. The local health department conducts outbreak investigations to determine multiple of items that include the cause of the outbreak, identifying risk factors for infection, identify and confirm the strain of norovirus, provide guidance to control and manage the outbreak, alongside educating the public on how to prevent further infections. As mentioned previously by both Sarah and Sheila, tracking ill persons and staff and campers is required by organized camps. In this slide, you will have access to a sample of acute gastrointestinal illness line list. This can be as a supplement to your current contact sheet that you would be required as the medical health officer would take a look at those details. If you notice, these fields include who, what, when, where, and can provide helpful details in the norovirus outbreak to control spread. We're now going to go ahead and take a look at some tools that would help educate staff, campers, and parents. CDC has developed a norovirus illness key facts and provides information on controlling the spread of commonly used as stomach bug, known as norovirus, and provides 5 tips to prevent norovirus from spreading. Those 5 are practice proper hand washing, wash fruits and vegetables, and cook seafood thoroughly. When you are sick, do not prepare food or care for others. Clean and disinfect contaminated surfaces. Wash laundry thoroughly. CDC also has developed something similar, but this one will focus on facts for food workers and provide information on common sources of norovirus and the spread of norovirus through infected food workers. The bulletin provides 4 tips to prevent norovirus from spreading. 1, when you are sick, do not prepare, serve, or touch food for others. 2, practice proper hand washing, and remember, alcohol-based hand sanitizers can be used in addition to hand washing. However, they should not be used as a substitute for hand washing with soap and water. 3, wash fruits and vegetables and cook seafood thoroughly. And 4, clean and disinfect contaminated surfaces. The Association of Food and Drug Officials, AFDO, has recently developed a sick food worker toolkit with resources to create or improve upon an existing sick worker plan. There are 4 easy steps. Use the checklist to identify gaps in the existing plan. Improve or create your plan with sample language. Train employees on the sick worker plan. And enforce the plan even when inconvenient. This toolkit also provides information in the appendixes that can improve upon or provide information where there maybe are gaps in the current plan, which include employee agreements or also employee symptom reporting posters, employee illness reporting logs, employee health decision guide, as well as hand washing posters. And we will go into this a little bit in a few slides, but norovirus cleanup. And there are things to remember about talking with sick workers that can be helpful. For cleaning and disinfection, scientific experts from the U.S. Centers Disease Control and Prevention have developed this poster for cleanup and disinfection for norovirus, also known as stomach bug. These directions should be used to respond to any vomit or diarrheal incident. Anything that has been in contact with vomit or diarrhea should be discarded or disinfected using the proper ratio of bleach and water. Here are a few cleaning and disinfection guidelines to follow when dealing with a vomit or diarrheal incident. 1. Don't wait to quarantine off the area. You do want to ensure that unintended exposure is limited, such as when campers may walk through an area or touch surfaces that are contaminated, and that they're not tracking that into other areas of the camp. This can also include shoes being removed, as these can be vehicles to track and spread the virus. 2, quarantine the area within 10 to 25 foot radius of the vomit incident. Yes, vomit can splatter and aerosolize. Think projectile. 3, always wear PPE to include disposable gloves, masks, safety goggles, and gowns. Yes, you should look like you're entering a chemistry lab and provide yourself adequate protection. It does not take a very large dose of virus, as we've mentioned earlier, to acquire an infection, as little as 10 to a dozen, and there are millions of these viruses shedding in vomit and diarrhea. 4, increase the frequency of cleaning and disinfection to twice a day. 5, high-touch surfaces like doorknobs and handles, faucets, latches, handrails may need to be cleaned multiple times a day. 6, campers may need to bring in additional cleaning staff to manage the outbreak. A camp can also hire a third-party vendor to conduct the cleaning and disinfection. And 7, U.S. Environmental Protection Agency publishes an approved, registered, and antimicrobial products effective against norovirus. This is known as List G. In regards to cleaning specific surfaces and items, this slide can be useful in determining next steps for high-touch surfaces, which we've mentioned earlier, such as handles, switches, doors, faucets, tables or counters. Also, non-porous hard surfaces in restrooms include toilets, sinks, furniture or walls, as well as porous surfaces like hard to clean items like carpets or upholstery. You want to carefully remove vomit and diarrhea as possible and clean with soap and hot water. Then steam and clean at a temperature of 158 degrees Fahrenheit for 5 minutes or 212 degrees Fahrenheit for 1 minute. Remember, coordinating the temperature with contact time. Do not vacuum, as this can aerosolize particles. Other items such as food-to-mouth contact items, thinking dishware, utensils, those can be run through a dish machine. Also, things that are made of cloth or plush items, clothing or textiles, stuffed animals, bedding, curtains, mattress covers. Carefully remove these items and wash them in a pre-wash cycle, followed by a regular wash cycle with detergent. For items not easily cleaned, such as crayons, puzzle pieces, clay, books, playing cards, board games, consider discarding, as these can be contact points and they're not easily cleanable. For outdoor areas, if it's, you can cover with dirt or soil, affected areas on the ground. Now we're going to go into camp communication for norovirus outbreak notification. The California Department of Public Health Infectious Diseases Branch Toolkit includes a sample notification letter that can be used by the organized camp to notify parents, guardians, and staff of the norovirus outbreak event and describes several sections. 1, what is norovirus? 2, what are the symptoms of norovirus? 3, how is norovirus infection treated? And 4, what to do if your child is infected. The California Department of Public Health Infectious Disease Branch Toolkit also includes a sample press release. This can be used by the local health jurisdiction and is a tool to notify the public about norovirus outbreaks. This includes norovirus being highly contagious and can spread quickly in settings with close contact, such as an organized camp. 2, most norovirus cases do not require medical care and may go undiagnosed. And 3, CDC estimates 19 to 21 million norovirus cases are documented in the U.S. each year. 4, norovirus symptoms include acute vomiting, diarrhea, and stomach cramps. Most people recover from norovirus in 1 to 3 days. What to do if you have norovirus, such as staying well hydrated, and provides other steps to stop the spread of norovirus. We're now going to go into camp-wide control measures during a norovirus outbreak. Some of this information will be consistent with what was already presented, and so we'll go through some of the highlights of these control measures. Listed are the effective measures using control or spread of norovirus. Obviously, number 1, hand washing and personal hygiene. As mentioned before, if we have any incident vomit, we want to make sure that we are quarantining off the area. Some helpful tips can even include having buckets or easily cleanable or disposable containers available for use in each cabin in the event of vomiting emergencies. As mentioned previously, exclusion or isolation of sick or recovering persons for up to 48 hours after the last symptom has ended. And designating restrooms for sick campers and sick workers. And then segregating sick campers and sick workers from dining areas with well persons. Also grouping sick campers in the same sleeping quarters to limit spread of the norovirus. For instance, if we are going to designate in an outbreak cabin 5, we would keep the same staff working in cabin 5 until the outbreak is over, rather than moving them around to different cabins. For food handling and dining, the following steps can be taken to keep norovirus from spreading to non-ill campers and staff. 1, ensuring screening takes place prior to each meal shift for symptoms of vomiting, diarrhea, stomach cramping, and or fever, and exclude anyone from the dining area and kitchen until at least 48 hours after the last symptom has ended. Ensure proper hand washing is required by food service staff to wear disposable gloves when handling, serving, and preparing food. Discard any ready-to-eat foods prepared by an ill food service worker as a precautionary measure. Ensure hand wash stations are adequately supplied in the dining areas and other areas where eating may occur. Clean and disinfect food preparation equipment and surfaces. Ensure all food service staff have access to a dedicated bathroom facility that is not shared with campers or other non-food service staff. Continuing with food handling and dining, the following steps to keep norovirus from spreading to non-ill campers and staff should be used to ensure all food staff wash their hands thoroughly before food handling and immediately after using the restroom. And we'll actually go over some signs that can be posted in those areas for helpful reminders. Prohibit campers from participating in meal preparation, table setting, and food service. Provide individual meals instead of family-style self-serve buffets or communal food items. If buffets must be used, food should be served by food service staff. 9, prohibit use of shared utensils, water pitchers, salt and pepper shakers, and cups. Consider using plates and single-use utensils and napkins. Special consideration should be given to minimize person-to-person contact during a norovirus outbreak in a camp. Consider postponing or canceling group activities until the outbreak is over. Examples of group activities can include communal meals, sports events, social recreational groups. Organized camps can consider hosting alternative activities for ill campers and staff. Orange County Healthcare Agency Environmental Health has provided a step-by-step checklist in response to fecal and vomit incidents and what to do before reopening your pool. It is noteworthy that this would also be documented in some sort of incident log, and then you can document how you handled the concentration of chlorine and disinfection with regards to contact time. In general, camps are not required to close during a norovirus outbreak. However, closures may be considered on a case-by-case basis if there is a large number of illnesses occurring. The local health jurisdiction will work in tandem with the camp to ensure the required measures are taken to control the spread of the outbreak. When measures taken are not effective, a closure may be needed to perform effective environmental cleaning. A camp may be closed by public health order and is issued by the local health officer during a communicable disease outbreak if deemed necessary. Now we're going to go ahead and provide some sample signs. This one in particular is an outbreak notice sign in regards to stomach virus. You can insert your logo in the top right, and it gives an easy 1, 2, and 3 with some visuals. This hand washing sign alerts folks on how to properly wash their hands in a step-by-step procedure. And there's a friendly reminder to also note that hand sanitizers do not kill all germs that cause illness. Again, you can insert your logo in the top right. U.S. Centers for Disease Control Prevention has provided a diarrhea and swimming don't mix. In California, it is noteworthy to know that there should be signs posted on the gates of your pool recreational area before entering at the fence line. So typically at the gate, you would have a diarrhea notice and what the requirements are for not entering the swimming area if you've experienced diarrhea within the last 72 hours. CDC also has provided some information on your disinfection team, which is going to be your chlorine and pH, and what sort of interesting things you should know about why this is important. Swimming pool chemistry should be balanced to create a safe and healthy environment. Chlorine and pH should be the first defense against germs that make swimmers sick. And CDC provides information on the role of chlorine and pH and their importance on why their levels should be checked daily. The California Department of Public Health Infectious Diseases Branch Toolkit includes a sample norovirus test verbal consent form that can be vetted by the local health jurisdiction's county council or legal department prior to use. The template can document individual consent to test for norovirus obtained verbally via telephone, for example, from individuals involved in the outbreak in a non-healthcare setting, such as an organized camp. The local health jurisdiction will want to have already coordinated with the local health department laboratory or public health lab and individuals involved in sample collection or drop-off. This hyperlink, will provide you directly to California Department's Public Health Infectious Diseases Branch Norovirus Toolkit for camp outbreaks. And this concludes our presentation. In the next slide, I do want to make mention there's a complete list of references with hyperlinks that were utilized in this toolkit if you want to take a deeper dive.
All right. If there's any questions, please put them in the chat. Hopefully you learned something about norovirus today and how to prevent it. There's a lot of information, and a huge thanks to Jennifer with Orange County. She was the one who put all of this information together for us in finding all of these resources.
And I also want to say a special thank you to California Department of Public Health Infectious Diseases Branch for their publication of the toolkit, and they were kind enough to review our presentation and provide some feedback.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you to your team.
Yeah. And to CCDEH for allowing us to use their platform to give this presentation today, and all of the help that they've given us, especially Cheryl, in helping us get ready for today and get everything posted on their website. So thank you. If anyone had norovirus prior to coming to camp, they should stay away from camp for at least 48 hours after their symptoms have subsided before they come to camp. So if they had it before coming to camp, they should be symptom-free at least 48 hours before coming to camp. The question was how long to stay away from camp when they have been exposed prior to arrival. Because the incubation period is a couple of days, they should wait a few days before coming to camp. One question was, since viral particles can still shed for 14 days after symptoms resolved, is staying away for 48 hours adequate? According to CDC, the viral load goes down substantially after 48 hours. So, and that is why they have that 48-hour window of staying away for 48 hours after symptoms subside, because the viral load is significantly less after that 48 hours. Any other questions or any I may have missed in
Sarah,
go ahead, Jennifer.
I think there was a comment provided, and I'm not seeing the question, but maybe we can just touch upon it. The question, I think, was related to if there is an episode of vomit, how long can norovirus stay suspended in the air?
So according to the Health Institute, it can stay suspended in the air, aerosolized for approximately 2 hours. And even though norovirus usually isn't a respiratory disease, it's gastrointestinal, because those particles are aerosolized, if they were to touch your lips or get into your mouth, if it's enough, it could cause infection that way.
And I think to just reiterate in the presentation, think projectile, right? This is going far and wide. So we're not just talking a few feet. It can be, 15 to 20. So we want to make sure that we're quarantining off a large enough area. So if something does happen in that zone, that folks aren't walking through there until there's proper cleaning and disinfection.
Right, and I just want to reiterate too, just the proper use of the PPE, making sure that limits the exposure risk as well before you enter to clean and disinfect the area. I think there was a question, Sarah, on is it effective to wash cartridge filters, or do they always have to be replaced after diarrhea or vomit? I believe that's for a pool.
So with cartridge filters, and with like diarrhea or vomit, it's usually not sufficient to just wash them because of the pathogens that we're dealing with. They can sometimes hide in those cartridges. So it is recommended that the cartridges actually be changed out instead of just rinsed off. Cryptosporidium and norovirus are the ones that we usually worry about, especially in pools. And anytime that there is a fecal or vomitus in the pool, the recommendation from the experts that we rely on, it has always been to change out those filters. And if we did miss any questions, please feel free to reach out to your local health department to ask questions. You can reach out to the organized camp TAC or a member of the organized camp TAC, and we'll get back to you. You can always find us also on our websites of our local like environmental health department. I'm on Riverside counties. Jennifer is with Orange County. You can always reach out to us there as well. And same with Sheila with Riverside County. How do the protocols and procedures change when in a pond or lake? So with a pond or lake, you're going to want to close that water body, and you're going to want to have water testing done to see what the bacterial and viral load in the water body is. If it's a man-made lake, then or pond, then you may have, I'd reach out to your local health department to get guidance, because you may be able to do some disinfection with that. If it's a natural occurring body, then it's going to be waiting until naturally that bacterial load goes down and having more testing done to verify that.
I do want to make mention, so I am seeing some questions about PPE. What's the level of requirement? We did talk about gowns, we talked about goggles, gloves, shoe covers. Again, looking like you're going into a laboratory. But what is helpful too is sometimes there are on the market, and we have seen this for restaurants, there are cleanup kits that are already assembled, and it includes things, the list of PPE along with the disinfectant, and those can be helpful too if you don't want to buy everything in a piecemeal. So just wanted to make mention of that.
And we just got a question in. Could you advise on the recommended infection control response if a camper at our summer camp develops norovirus symptoms while using a communal restroom and shower facility? Does anybody want to take that? I can start. So if it's a communal restroom and shower facility, you're going to want to close that off again because of the aerosolized particles, and we don't want it to spread. Leave it for a couple of hours, and then don your wonderful, lovely PPE and go in there, and you're going to want to clean and disinfect the shower and restroom area. Bleach and chlorine is the most effective sanitizer against norovirus. So that's the one that all of our experts say to use. So you'll want to use that. And then you can open it back up again once it's all dried.
Right. You want to leave that disinfectant at least 5 minutes wet.
Exactly. Yeah.
There is also another comment about CDC instructs a very high concentration of chlorine, for example, 3,500 part per million for cleanup, but is that enforceable under Cal Code? So in an outbreak setting, yes, through measures under our health officer, we are able to step in and recommend that cleaning in order to mitigate outbreaks or further spread.
Yeah. And it is important to note, sorry, Jennifer, I didn't mean
to go for
it. If you are experiencing an outbreak at a camp, it's very important as soon as you realize that you've got that going on, that you reach out to your local health department so we can provide you assistance. Public health can provide you assistance and recommendations on how to take care of what steps should be taken and help kind of guide you through this process. Again, we are a great resource. We really do want to help you. And we're not just up there to write up violations. We are there as a resource for you, as camps, to help guide you through these situations, because we don't want you to be going through this, and you shouldn't be going through it alone. So please do reach out so that we can provide assistance.
And a follow-up question too, since we're talking about cleaning and disinfection, what is the best alternative to bleach? Some school camps aren't allowed to use bleach. So I would refer back to that EPA list G. It lists all of the registered EPA cleaning and disinfection products that can be used that are effective against norovirus following those product information label on how to use. And so I know during COVID, it was interesting. There were some of those that did actually dual use. They were effective against both, but again, with the right concentration and contact time and use following the directions. Hopefully that helps.
All right. And I say, do we need to take water and filter samples for a pool if it was confirmed that it was the norovirus source?
Two separate things. If we're looking at norovirus in general with recreational health pools. So if it's just an incident of vomit and that happened in the pool, then you're going to follow the instruction for vomit in the pool, for cleaning and disinfection. It's noted that it doesn't actually have to have a very high concentration of chlorine, but when you do have a diarrheal incident in a pool, you will have to close the pool and have that contact time that's sufficient for cleaning. Disinfection includes filter systems, addressing those, either backwashing or replacing your filter cartridges. In terms of testing the water samples, no, you do not need to test your water to confirm that that is the source. Typically with norovirus, folks, it's signs and symptoms, and if you're coordinating human testing with fecal matter, then that would be coordinated through public health lab or your local health jurisdiction. But you don't need to test food or water typically. Now, should something be an outbreak and you have direction from the state and the local health jurisdiction that we believe this might be an ongoing issue, we mentioned about wells being contaminated, and maybe the well is the potable water source that is used to supply water in the pool. It's used for drinking and so forth. So there might be additional considerations in an outbreak if there's more testing that needs to be done because of either ongoing transmission or suspicion of something that came up. So
I was hoping to bring up the pool disinfection that Orange County has that was in the presentation. It's in the presentation that has the response to the different types of incident.
It's slide 46.
There you go, slide 46. Thank you, Sheila. And then most local health departments will have something similar on their website. So if for any reason you can't locate this one from Orange County, Riverside County also has a response guidelines on our website on how to respond to different incidents in pools and other recreational water bodies as well. All right. Thank you everyone so much in joining us today. Thank you for your participation, your great questions, and keeping our camp safe. So have a wonderful camp season and a wonderful day. Take care.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.